Why horror? Why do you love it so much? As a horror fan, I'm sure you got this question at some point or another. And as hard as we all horror fans tried, it's impossible to make non-horror fans understand why we love the genre so much and how meaningful it is to us, how deep the connection to this genre and these movies and these books and these comic books and TV shows goes. Because it's just so special that the connection that we have to the genre is hard to explain it beyond words. But we tried. I'm gonna try. And the reason why I'm trying right now is because I'm reading this book that is actually called Why I Love Horror. And several horror authors are sharing their stories about which was the book or the TV show or the movie or whatever it was that made them fall in love with the genre and how they never came back from it. And that's one of the magics about horror. Once you fall under its spell, you can never go back. It's like we're under this love spell that we know it can be deadly, but we can never get away from it. Horror is just not something you consume in the sense that you don't just sit back and watch a movie to enjoy it. Sometimes we do when we already seen that movie so many times and we already went through the dialogue, we went through all the Easter eggs, we try to get the clues ourselves, we already like kind of try to tear apart all the story behind it to find different meanings and different messages. And we bond with certain characters when we watch it at a specific moment of our lives. At different times, we might connect with another character, sometimes with the villain or the antagonist of whoever it is that's making our main character's life so miserable. Because let's face it, our characters in horror films are going through the worst case scenario of the worst case scenario. And as hard as it is to believe, considering the state of the world as it is right now, and because we all live our lives and we all went through probably a lot of traumatic events, some people more than others, some people for longer periods of time than others, we can still say that reality, it is way nicer than fiction because it is. And that's why it's so validating and so cathartic to see characters who are going through stuff that is way worse than what that we went through. Sometimes it's similar, and they just push through it. And seeing them fight so hard, with sometimes they don't have the tools, sometimes they don't have the support, and they still fight. Not everybody makes it sometimes. Some people make it, not feeling completely well, and there are others who do make it. And that's why it's so important to us. And that's why it's so important to show these stories of different people who fight in different ways to this threat, to this evil entity. It may be a slasher, it might be a curse, it may be a cult, it might be a whatever it can be. It's something that it's testing your fear. And as humans, we're always feel fear. We're no one if we're not afraid of stuff. Fear can block us, can make us not do something, but it can also protect us a lot. But also, when you have a fear that is actually not allowing you to move forward, it's when you have to face it. Sometimes you do it before you're ready, but because life pushes you through it. In other times, just go ahead and do it. And when you're not sure you're going to win, that's exactly why you have to do it. Because nothing is guaranteed in this life. And horror movies show us that. It's a cliche to say that horror is a mirror to society, but it is. And that's why everybody keeps saying it. It's a cliche because it works. It shows us that truth, the hard truth that sometimes the world, it's just not ready to see. But we see it because we've seen the dark side of the world. We've seen humans at their worst, doing their worst, being their worst. But we got through it, and that made us better people. Even though we've seen the worst, we made the decision to not be like them. And we have so many awesome characters in horror that went through so much, and they still managed to get back on their feet, and they wipe the blood off their clothes, and they just keep going. Sometimes the threats come back because in horror we do love sequels, but sometimes it doesn't, and they move on. They face their fear, and they won. Winning is also not the whole point, but that could be a theme for another video because what I wanted to talk about a little bit right now, it's also a little bit of my story with horror. I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm so sorry, but I'm just so excited. My name is Isa. I'm a big horror fan. I'm also a horror author. I'm published, but we'll get there. And I want to share a little bit about my story with the genre and why I fell in love with it so bad and which were the movies that kind of influenced me into it. The inspiration for this whole video was because of the book Why I Love Horror. It's been recently released. I haven't finished it yet, but so far all the essays I read from these different horror authors have been so amazing. I felt so related to them in different ways because each life story is so different. And the book or movie, TV show or comic book or whatever media it was that made them fall in love with the genre, they're all so different. And there might be books or movies that I didn't personally enjoy, but they did because their life story matched better with the movie or book energy or the setting or the thread or the whatever it was there that caused them fear. And those movies helped them face them. Movies in horror always touch us in soft spots that we didn't know that we have sometimes. And I started to notice that as I grow older, when there were movies that were coming out and everybody was talking about them. And I was like, I want to watch this movie. I love horror. I want to watch this movie. But if a movie talks about home invasions, for example, for me, it was a very sore topic. It was hard for me to sometimes to watch those movies. It took me a few years to finally watch The Strangers, for example. And now it's one of my favorite movies. But in that one, I did see my worst fears, actually my worst trauma, because it's something I went through when I was a kid. I saw them on the screen and it actually made me feel less scared. It's like when they say in psychology that once you want to erase a memory, you have to remember it. Remember it clearly, and there won't come a day that you won't remember it anymore. Or at least you will, but it won't hurt you the same way that it did before. The story for horror with me started when I was around 8. I watched The Toolbox Murders, directed by Toby Hooper, and starring Angela Bettis. A lot of people didn't see that movie. You're not missing much. It's kind of a clunky film, but it's quite brutal and it scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. But I still enjoyed it. I have fun with it. And after that, it was around that time that I fell in love with Sarah Michelle Gellar because I'm gay as well, if you didn't notice yet. And I know she was in this movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it was a scary film. So I was like, let's watch it. And I loved it. I love the mystery. I love the characters. I love the different layers of the mystery. I love the setting, the high stakes. It was the first time there was a actually concern for me from these characters being like, oh my God, is it going to die? What's this fisherman going to do? And some of them did. Rest in peace, Helen Shivers. That's actually kind of my point because I watched that movie 1,000 times at least. And even when I watch it now, I still get upset when Helen doesn't make it. I get as upset as I get when I was a kid. And that actually shows how much we do care about these characters. And even though we know the outcome, we just feel sad about them because they fought, they did their best, they really tried to end this evil and they just didn't make it. But that's also how life works, unfortunately. People fight and fight and fight. None of them, it's a loser. Either some people make it and they think that those are the winners. The ones that fought are also winners. But it's rambling. I wanted to say a little bit about how that movie impacted me so much in the sense that I fell in love with mysteries. And it was thanks to that movie. The DVD box on the side said something about comparing it to another movie called Scream. So, yes, it's very unoriginal, but I fell in love with Scream. That movie changed my life. Don't even get me started on Scream 2. But that movie changed my life in the sense that it was so self-aware. It was actually making fun of the tropes, of the cliches. Before when people actually consider those cliches, it was actually be like, all of these movies have a pattern. Why don't we just talk about them, face them, and maybe repeat them? Because once you're aware you're using a cliche, the impact is kind of different. And I kind of agree. And Scream is scary. It's fun. It has great characters. It has awful characters. And it's just amazing. There's some connection that you feel with it because when you also see the whole actors and the behind the scenes people that were working on these projects, you can tell there was something magical going on. If there's no chemistry, if no one believes in what they're doing, it's hard for the consumer, the viewer, the reader, whatever, to see it yourself. And I feel like Scream has always been a special franchise because people involved in it really believed in it. And that's what I think it made a difference. And that's why it's so meaningful to all of us. Not just because of the great writing and the great acting and the amazing kills and ghost face masks, which is incredible, and low-key kind of hot. At first, I watched all these movies with my parents. they enjoyed the Scream movies, but other of those movies, they were maybe a little too violent or they just didn't enjoy them. And that was okay for me because I was, and they were surprised that I was being just a 9 or 10-year-old kid. And one day I remember my mom, she decided not to watch. I don't remember what movie it was, but we were watching this movie, and at some point she was like, I'm not enjoying this. Clearly you are, and I'm happy to see you so happy. So keep watching. Just remember, if you do get scared, here's the remote control. You can hit the pause button. And actually, that suggestion, I always held it close to me because it seems so silly, but it's also incredibly powerful. Because that's why horror movies are also amazing for people that watch them to also feel validated and to kind of like face some of their own traumas, because you can always hear the pause button. Movies give us that chance. Books also give us that chance. We can just close it, hit the bookmark, and just close the book. But life doesn't give us those chances. As we grow older, and by a lot of trial and error, a lot of those, we manage to get out of certain situations that we don't like. We get away from people that hurt us or that those don't make us feel good. And that's great, but that's something that we learn in time. And unfortunately, the biggest events that mark our lives, the most drastic ones, the traumatic ones, the life-changing ones, don't so give us that chance. They just come to us and we just have to face them. There is no pause button there. So it's also very powerful when you have the chance to test your limits and be like, okay, this is how much I can take. And that's when I want to go back to the soft spots that we have. Sometimes we start watching a movie and we don't know there's a specific subplot that might hit too close to home. We're like, oh, maybe I don't, it's making me feel weird things. I don't want to feel these things. So we can always hit the pause button. You can move forward if you want, or you can start it over and you can just forget about it. And that's your own choice. But as long as you remember that in the movie, you can always control it, that's great. But always try to take the lesson that this movie gave you to face life, because life doesn't give us a pause button, but horror movies have given us so many tools, resources, characters, so much support. And it built this amazing community when I feel like for non-horror fans, it can be like a community full of future sociopaths, when it's actually kind of one of the best communities you can be in, because you'll feel supported. You feel like you're one of the team, like you're not the bastard child of anybody. You're just part of the team, and we love to hang out. We love to have different opinions. We love to share for hours about our favorite movies and ranking franchise. And it's just, we enjoy spending our time together. And we all love horror so much that we understand the meaning that certain movies that maybe are not important to us are important to other people, because we're all different people. And that's why the horror community is amazing, because we're all so incredibly different and there's something that connects us all. And for the outside, it may be like, why you guys are friends? You have nothing in common. Loving horror is actually a big thing, because we learn to see the world from the darkest side. We learned that the world can be a tough place to live in, especially if you're different. I'm a gay autistic Latino guy now living in the US, so I understand a little bit about that. Um, and horror shows us that, okay, not a lot of people are going to like this about you, and they're going to try to take you down. But you can always fight. And it's not about the outcome, it's about fighting. Movies, specifically horror movies, tell us that fight, it's the only source that we have in life. We don't give up. In horror movies, people don't give up. And that's why we don't give up, because those people are strong and we are strong. So that's why we're strong together.